Okay, I think right now it's already, the recording is in process, right? Okay. And then smart cities. So this is an argument by scholars. I will explain the argument gradually. Smart city is the most important thing of smart city. Remember this first, and then I will demonstrate later on. Okay, the most important thing of smart cities is actually not add technology to cities. No, it is not add technology to cities. It's not add internet IoT to cities. It is very much run the city using the logic of platforms. It's about applying the logic of platforms to cities. So what does it mean? Again, for those who are not with me from the smart city course, platform refers to, basically remember, they are apps. Almost all apps on your phone, they are platforms. So platforms, what is platforms? Let's just give you an example. So for this, I'm trying to answer what is platform and what's actually what is the logic of platforms. So the initial platform that triggered a lot of interest of scholars is actually Amazon. Okay, here we put it eBay, the same. The online shopping apps. eBay is an app, right? Amazon is also app. You can find it on your phone. And traditionally, if you look at traditional retail business, before we put it on the phone, traditional business is the shops. Traditional shops has a linear relationship between buyers and sellers. Imagine the grocery store, 7-Eleven, on the street at the corner, around the corner. So you have consumers coming in and buying things, and you have suppliers, okay, sellers, suppliers supply your goods to put into your store. So it's a one-to-one relationship. Okay, this is a one-to-one relationship. But when it comes to online, let's use the case of, we use the case the eBay, Amazon, they are the same. For the platform of, for the app of eBay, there are buyers, there are sellers for sure. But if you notice that the difference is that actually buyers, when you open your app of eBay and search for particular goods, you will find a list, you'll come up with a list of different types of that kind of products, right? Sold by different dealers, retailers, and you will choose one. So there's also a direct relationship between buyers and sellers. And more than that, eBay must also handle many other relationships. For example, people who don't really buy things, but they serve, and they try to click like and they give comments to particular products. So these are users, not really buyers, but still they will affect the ranking system, the sequence of the products appear when you search for particular products, right? And also eBay also must handle the logistics sector. I think last time when we talk about this in the other class, also our students remind me there's also policy involved, right? The government policy involved. For example, some books are not allowed to be shipped to Hong Kong, and some products are not to be shipped to Hong Kong or to mainland China because this is for United States only. So there's also immigration policy, custom policy that define the policy intervention into this platform. And also you also need to deal with a lot of the currency, right? Banks, credit cards, all kinds of different things, and they happening at the same time. So this is business school, okay? Scholars from business school, that the big difference, the categorical difference that platforms has made in comparison to the traditional physical stores on the street is the multi-sided markets. So platform is not just handling two sides, they are handling multiple sides at the same time. And there are many different interactions happening at the same time. So for the apps, the most important thing is coordinating, right? He's handling many different actors. He needs to coordinate all the different relationships that are happening between either pair of them or all of them. So that's why the logic of platform is the logic of handling multiple markets, multiple actors. Just like, so this is when we apply the logic of platforms to smart cities, you will see in cities, again, when we look at ICT and the cities and IoT, you will see, for example, smart cities might be applied, ICT or IoT might be applied to urban systems. For example, the buildings, the roads, energy, waste, water, green infrastructure, even more actors. And all these actors are functioning with different data. And social systems, for example, citizen, we have apps to record the people's birth date, the death rate, for example, pandemic, how's the death rate, and how many people have been adopted to hospitals. All the different data might affect the operation of MTR, right? The bus system. So all these kind of data are put into the platform. Actually, for smart cities, especially top-down smart cities, there's one particular, physically one controlling center. It's a room. It's a big room, a big hall with many different, these kind of massive computers. And control all the input of data and then how these data are processed and then put out. Okay, so well, this is especially true for top-down design of smart cities. Usually involved the big tech companies, ICT tech companies, for example, IBM. I will come back to this next week. So in this if we look at that controlling center as the platform of the smart system for particular city, imagine that's Amazon. Okay, imagine that room, that controlling center is Amazon, and that Amazon needs to handle a lot of different data input. How about the data on traffic? How about the data on waste management? How about the data on water management, water supply? And how about the GDP? How about the different income report? Okay. And education, how many students actually right now are attending classes on campus, or actually how many students are learning at home? All these data need to get into this controlling machine, the platform, Amazon, imagine it as Amazon, and then will be sent out, processed, and then sent out. For example, if there are too many students get sick, or too many people, let's say, get sick in a hospital, when the input data from the hospital says that there's a sharp surge of hospitalized confirmed case of COVID-19, and then perhaps after processing of the data, there's a command message sending out to the education system to see that since this day, students do not go back to schools. You have to stay at home. Okay, so you will see data input from one market after processed will be sent out to another markets. So this is how, okay, we call platforms is actually a system of systems. Imagine this controlling center is actually Amazon. And then this platform is handling many different types of data from different sectors. Input and output is very much about coordinating the data. And we realize that actually you will see perhaps it's very irrelevant sectors right now. They are actually affecting each other. We don't expect the hospital, in the past, we don't think that what's happening in the hospital. Data from the hospital will affect data in schooling, school policy, education policy. Upload the. I think I have already shared the PowerPoints, right? I already said, I already shared the PowerPoints. Please go to the announcement and follow the link to get to the PowerPoint. Okay, the PowerPoint is already shared. It's in PDF format. So this is basically what we when we look at smart cities, it's very much like a platform, the logic of platform to handle data input and output from different sectors. Another picture just to show you a city as a system of systems. You will handle many different sectors at the same time, perhaps, because it's real-time interaction. You will observe in the controlling center, you will really observe the real-time interaction of data, how they actually react to each other. So this is very much about a system of system, so that, advocates says that this kind of controlling smart cities through data coordinating is very useful, because it's very much instant way of reaction, instant way of control. We keep monitoring the data so that we can react very much in time. This is why later on it's called in-time capitalism. Okay, just in-time capitalism. Everyone is real-time happening and reacted within seconds. So just-in-time capitalism, especially everything rely on the infrastructure for data flow. So again, look at this video. I think
Amsterdam Smart City is the innovation platform of the Amsterdam metropolitan area, which challenges companies, residents, the municipality and knowledge institutions to develop and realize smart solutions for today's urban challenges. Today, we're more connected than ever to the people and technology around us. Solar and wind energy powers our homes, while a smart app tells us when our car needs to be charged. Sometimes technology is the driving force behind innovation, sometimes it's common sense. Take a ladder, for instance. You may only need it a couple of times a year, so why not share it? The same goes for energy. If you generate more than you need, you can give your surplus to your neighbor or sell it. By working together smartly and openly share knowledge and data, we expand our horizons and are able to come up with new ideas and solutions, such as helping to prevent traffic jams and long waiting lines. Data can also help us to determine appropriate regulations for maintaining balance in our cities. Well-managed traffic flows and Amsterdam Smart City is the innovation platform.
Wait a moment. You cannot find the link. Oh. So here, got the link. Okay, the link to the PDF. Somebody's microphone is on without intention, I suppose. Anyway.
Amsterdam Smart City is the innovation platform of the Amsterdam metropolitan area, which challenges companies, residents, the municipality, and knowledge institutions to develop and realize smart solutions for today's urban challenges. Today, we're more connected than ever to the people and technology around us. Solar and wind energy powers our homes, while a smart app tells us when our car needs to be charged. Sometimes technology is the driving force behind innovation, sometimes it's common sense. Take a ladder, for instance. You may only need it a couple of times a year, so why not share it? The same goes for energy. If you generate more than you need, you can give your surplus to your neighbor or sell it. By working together smartly and openly share knowledge and data, we expand our horizons and are able to come up with new ideas and solutions, such as helping to prevent traffic jams and long waiting lines. Data can also help us to determine appropriate regulations for maintaining balance in our cities. Well-managed traffic flows and good water management, for example. By continuously working together and innovating in areas such as connectivity, mobility, energy, and healthcare, our city stays connected with the future. The solutions we're working on today not only make living in and around Amsterdam more enjoyable and sustainable, they also make the city a safer and more social place. A place that's equipped for the future that starts now. Amsterdam.
Okay, so afterwards, are we clear right now? The logic of platforms apply to the cities. And pay attention to the three key elements, ICT, IoT, and citizen. ICT and IoT all refer to the technical term, the digital term, and citizen refers to the subjective eyes, okay? The working class value and the participatory of every ordinary people, and counter massive consumerism, counter private ownership, and the idea of sharing, idea of collective, only collective usage. Okay, afterwards, right now here we move to the second part when we put it as governance in and through smart cities. So, you know, this is very new. In the past, if we govern cities, we divide the cities to different sectors, and we have different departments, different bureaus to manage different sectors, and we do, you know, for each city government there is perhaps regular meetings for cross-sector communications, but this is completely different. In today, the platform still remember the many individual people climbing up along the phone. So today we are facing something very, very different. Every individual, every citizen, many small eyes, not just a big social group, not just different sectors, but many eyes, many individuals becomes part of the smart city. So the unit of interaction, unit of management, unit of data input becomes very fine level, the individual level. So pay attention to this. This is completely different, very much a scattered level of governance. There's no longer sectors. There's no longer sectors or groups or blah, blah, blah. Right now we are talking about individuals, how individual citizens can be governed, okay? And apps, everyone has an app. It is also very much distributed, right? So here we talk about something very challenging when we do try to initiate apps and try to use these apps, these platforms to help us to control, coordinate the data flows. And we have two types of partnership. The first is informal partnership, and the second is formal partnership. Sounds like binary, right? Sounds like common. You know, these two types of things exist long before ICT, but still true now. But the things, very different things that, again, if we try to think this along the temporal line, along the line of time, smart cities initiatives always start from individual small apps and gradually becomes a big tech and these kind of giant tech companies like Google, but also IBM, and then controlled particular types of design of smart cities. So if you look at digital term, almost everything starts from informal partnership. Because if you look at small apps, all the apps that is invented by just small companies, right? The startups, only one or two, three persons, they can invent an app, and all these kind of app, any individual can download it on the phone. So this is really not any formal relationship. And we are facing in this kind of governance, we are facing millions of small startups, millions of apps, millions of individuals who are using these apps. So it is very much fragmented relationship, and it is very much a mixed puzzle of informal and formal relationship. And yes, we still are able to divide two types of device in terms of smart cities. One is this kind of top-down approach. Okay, top-down approach. The other is bottom-up approach. Top-down approach focuses on technology efficiency and master planning, integrating data from different systems into a central operation center. Again, the controlling center. Remember that the system of systems, the Amazon, which coordinate all kinds of sectors. So this is actually the top-down approach. For many city government, when they collaborate with IBM or with some, for example, in Seoul, they collaborate with Samsung. It is very much they try to. That's the type of top-down approach. Design policies. Work together with Amazon, work together with IBM or Samsung to design that kind of controlling hub, and then build up all the different infrastructures to connecting your street light, your traffic light, blah blah, all these kind of things, and design a particular industry park for the innovation companies. Those are top down, but as I said before, if you look at the history, if you look at the gradual involvement of digital terms, smart term, everything starts bottom up. It is always start with many small apps, small companies. If you still recall, for those who are as old as me, if you recall in the 90s, okay, in the late 90s, there are millions of small tech companies, internet companies, right? Yahoo used to be so big. And we have Yahoo, we have Google, we have almost everything. And also in China, we have a lot, we used to have a lot of these kind of online forums. You can call it the mushrooming of technological companies. Many are small, and we used to think they will all grow up. But after several years, it turned out some companies grew up to big giant technological companies like Google, Facebook. Many others died, many others faded away. But anyway, still, bottom-up approach refers to those small things. Start with small apps, or maybe just a small web page. Everything starts from a web page, and then an app. For example, Twitter in the very beginning, it is also bottom up, right? Only start with somebody, small Facebook, let's say, start with a university student in Harvard, and then he invented an app and put it into usage to test, first of all, among his own classmates, and then later on, Facebook's eventually grown to the big giant, the big monster we have today. But still, it's bottom-up approach. That's why that's the most difficult part to handle, because there are too many of them. If you only when you open them, for example, if you use iPhone or whatever you use, Android phone, there's an app where you can buy all kinds of apps, right? So you will see millions of apps coming up every day. So that's the bottom-up approach. So bottom-up approach focuses on citizens, individual citizens, and how they use innovative technologies such as social media, mobile applications, and open data to create a solution to issues that matter to them and enable behavior change. Here, another figure to illustrate what is top-down and what is bottom-up. So this week, we will focus on bottom-up. So if you look at the bottom-up, there are big smart city initiatives, but first of all, you do have a lot of people, yeah, usually tech professionals, venture capitals, coders, and they come together and they form a small group, a small team, and they invented some different apps and put it onto the market. Some eventually grow to a big company, and eventually perhaps IBM of Communist Way, and then they eventually get into the city council, collaborate with the government to build up the controlling center for the whole city. Okay, so this is the bottom up. This is the most complicated relationship, organizational structure of governance. The partnership, okay, this is the mixture of informal and formal partnership. Another type is top-down. For example, there are a number of these kind of cities building from scratch. For example, the city of Songdo in South Korea, it is initiated from scratch, right? That was built up from in somewhere there was no development at all, but starting with master planning collaboration between Samsung and actually in the first it's beginning it's a collaboration between Seoul government and the Cisco, and then with Samsung, and then they designed the entire city and then completed. So that's the top-down approach. We will come back to that next week. So this week we try to look at bottom-up, and for the bottom-up, it's usually one concept is very important. That is the word of sharing. We always heard this term sharing economy, sharing society. We share data, we share information, we share energy, we share everything. So again, let me recall your attention from the two factors that eventually triggered the smart turn of our cities. First of all, the third wave of art craft movement, making and hacking citizen, individual eyes. We try to participate. We every single person, you actually played a role in the bottom-up approach. Not just coders, not just those invented startups or invented apps. Okay, every single person, as long as you have a phone, as long as you are using any apps, even you don't have a phone, if you have a computer, you are connected to the internet, you are able to contribute data to this. Even you don't really or like for example the case of Hong Kong, if you have an Octopass card and you get on the bus, you also contribute to the input of data. Remember that the input of data affect the output of data to someone else. So every single person matters in this place. And also sharing is also very much advocated, promoted by these artists and makers and hackers to say, we try to create a place for sharing, the utopian for democracy, which is very much based on anti-private ownership. So for example, if you give you more concrete what we share in terms of apps, right? So when coders, when those technical persons, when they design the apps, it is very much in the beginning about sharing. How do we share? We can share hardwares, we can share experience, we can share emotions, trust. Imagine this, for example, Uber, Airbnb. First of all, they share a room that was not built for sale. That was not built for listen to individual customers, right? Airbnb collected all these, let's say, spare rooms in your home, so that you can listen to someone who is visiting your city for perhaps only 3 days, and not really. It's very much like, it's unlike hotel. For hotel, the entire building, all the rooms in the hotel are deliberately built up for the purpose of hosting tourists. But Airbnb is different. Okay, Airbnb says that, you don't really have to get into the book into the hotel. We can make use of the existing blocks, existing housing blocks. This family has a spare room for that particular day, or maybe we are going on vacation. So my entire unit, my entire flat is available for this particular week. So this is very much about sharing hardware in particular time. So the very much the important thing is very much about information sharing. How can we get into the information where, when, and where there's a spare room or there's a spare unit? Okay, so this Airbnb and Uber is even more clear. Uber is trying to make use of existing cars rather than produce a new car. Taxi, okay, all the taxi cars are produced deliberately for that purpose, but Uber is different. Uber is trying to make use of existing cars that is already on the road, but we can use it for some other purpose. So this is initially all the idea is about sharing the hardware. But also it's maybe about sharing experience. For example, in Hong Kong, we have this open rice. How's your experience of eating in that restaurant? How would you rent? How would you rate that restaurant? Is it expensive? It is good, or the environment is good or friendly, or blah blah blah, this kind of thing. So you can share your experience in terms of data, information, right? And you can share in emotion, trust. For example, Uber. Hong Kong is a safe place. Perhaps we don't have that much concern, but if you think about United States, how can you get on a stranger's car and take you from some place, perhaps to your home, which is your private address? So you must trust that driver so that you can get on his car. But don't worry about your wallet. Don't worry you'll be killed or robbed or anything. So the trust is very, this is a very interesting thing. Why we trust Uber drivers? Although right now, yes, there are accidents, right? There are incidents, there are cases of, no trustful drivers. But anyway, the basic concept of Uber, the basic concept of Airbnb is still based on trust. How we build up trust to somebody we don't know at all. So this is very much about sharing information, sharing experience. And later on, we do have sharing capitals, the crowdfunding, right? We can. Everyone seems to believe that we can put in, collect a pool of money, and so that I trust you will make a success business. I can learn I can contribute my share to you. So there's also sharing of capitals. So all these things is a crowd-based networks rather than centralized institution or hierarchies. So again, I will come back to this later next week about the network and hierarchies. But anyway, in this slides, what I'm trying to emphasize is still everything starts from sharing. We can share, which sounds, is actually, I should say, at the beginning was a very noble idea. We can share, we can make use of it, which is very sustainable, right? We don't have to produce another taxi to running on the street, making blocking the street, leading to the traffic jam. We can use existing stocks, housing, and also we can share our experience. we share our informations. Everything is about sharing, collective sharing. So for example, offal, this is a case in Beijing. So far, also not very successful so far, but anyway, used to be very successful case of shared bike. The bike sharing scheme by offal. If we look at the story here, this is the interview to the person who invented this idea, invented this app, to ask, what's your idea? Why? What triggered you? Okay. So he said that the business model of is very simple. When I was a student, I lost 5 bikes in 4 years. The amount is small, but I still wanted to solve the problem. Our first solution was to play Sherlock Holmes and enlist campus guards to patrol. We are hoping to catch a thief. However, this method proved unreliable, so we shifted focus, make the bike easy to share. The traditional locker and key was highly inconvenient. How could multiple users share one locker and key for each bike? How they pass it along? The logistics were cumbersome at best. So we decided to think out of the box. Then that's the one brilliant steps. We decided to use an app in which you could scan each bike's individual OR code to lock and unlock the bike with passcode protection. For this singular solution, offal was born. So initial idea is very much, this is, I'm afraid for those from Hong Kong, you might not understand this, but for those from mainland China, especially in that time, okay, and perhaps go back a few years. Yes, bike in universities, you get lost all the time, and that's the ownership of bikes, right? If you want to own a bicycle, which is not really expensive, but still you get lost all the time. So ownership is not the best solution. The best solution perhaps is to share. We don't have to own a bike. We use it when we need it, and we can use the same bike. Then we don't have to worry about ownership. So again, a similar thing happens to Uber. Uber story begins in Paris in 2008. Two friends, Travis Kalanick and Garrett Gamp, were attending a LabWeb annual tech conference. The Economist describes where revolutionary gather to plot future. Anyway, this is a geek conference, okay? So he said that one winter night during conference, when the pair was unable to get a cab, Uber was found on a single idea. What if you could request a ride from your phone? So in 2009, Cab was still CEO, blah, 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 work on the prototype for the Uber Cab was a side project. So if we compare shared bike, offal, and Uber, we see ICT, technology information, and we see IoT. It is a hardware and connected to the internet and then controlled by the app on everyone's phone. So there's ICT, there's IoT, and there's citizen. Every users have access to this, to the usage of the bike, to the usage of this car, but you don't have to own it. Okay, so the idea is very much to combine the 3 elements through a sharing mechanism, Right now, of course, Uber becomes almost very influential. They expand very quickly. Right now, becomes a giant. We also have car sharing and traditional car rental. But the interesting thing is that yes, if you compare car sharing and Uber and traditional car rental, so what I'm trying to say is that what makes the difference is still ICT. In the past, if you, for example, tourists, when you travel to United States and you want to rent a car, it is easy, right? Just to go to the airport, there must be some counter there. The company give you a lot of business members, you pay the fee and you can rent a car. And the business was there before ICT. The difference is just with ICT, you have it control on your phone. So the integration, the third element, ICT, and the hardware was put onto the internet, and the information can be spread much widely to every individuals. So this is the difference, but still it's very much about sharing, right? And you don't really have to, even you look at these cars, they still deliberately produced and reserved, waiting there all the time for you to rent it. But for Uber, you don't have to do that, right? That car may be renting somewhere else for his own private purpose, but right now he has some time and give you a ride. So that's the initial idea, sharing mechanism, so that you can have three elements coming together, okay? And but so here comes the very big, however, a big but. Let me remind you, capitalism is always reactive, always about reappropriate new forces. So what I'm trying to see here at the very beginning, again, bottom-up approach, small persons, small, even Twitter, even Uber, even Facebook, when they, at the very beginning, they are nobody, right? They are just some nerds, tech coders, professionals. They try to invent an app to share something. Everything sounds very positive. Everything sounds very sustainable. Everything sounds so genuinely good-hearted, right? But when particular apps becomes more and more popular, expands to many different cities, the market occupation becomes wider and wider, capitalism will take control of it. The logic of capitalism will now reappropriate the idea of sharing. So we do have, when we again look back to these big companies right now, Uber, TikTok, YouTube, Airbnb, you will see that scholars call it as a lean platform. So this is a platform, this is a company, but the cost has been minimized. There's no cost for means, product, service provided on the platform. There's no cost for labor, employees. If you look at, for example, Uber owns no car. On the good side, look at positively, you can see it is sharing, it is making use of existing stocks, right? Don't waste anything. But look at the other side, which means Uber doesn't have to invest in any initial resources. Uber just linked a car to its app. You don't have to pay anything for that particular car. So it is very much about, the most notorious part of these firms is their outsourcing of workers. The platforms legally understand their workers as independent contractors rather than employees. So Uber drivers, they are independent person, happen to offer a ride to another person. And the Uber app happen to be the bridge here through the sharing mechanism, which sounds very noble, which sounds very good-hearted, but Uber profit from nothing. They don't have to pay for the driver in case there's accident. Insurance, in case there's accident, the driver must pay for his own insurance, right? Or in case any expense, for example, if he get adopted to the hospital, everything is on his own. The same for Airbnb, okay? So if you look at when they really grow up to a company, to a giant, to not just a unicorn, but to really a functional operating company, profit means that they actually have no cost at all, or let's say the cost has been minimized. This is the best way. In that way, the profit is maximized. You made a fortune out of nothing. Okay, the owner of Uber, the owner of Airbnb, the app made a fortune out of nothing. You don't have to take care of your employees, you don't take care of your hardware, and you're just collecting money out of it. So this is later on we call it the crowd-based capitalism. So I won't go to details about this mechanism here, but just to show you this, if you have interest, really go to read this book, a very insightful book by Aram Sundararajan about the sharing economy. Sounds looks, very romantic idea, but it's very much the end of employment and the rise of crowd-based capitalism. And also by another scholar, the platform capitalism is very much about, if we look at how those app company make money, they rely on data. It is the data has input for every one of you. As long as you use the app, you are contributing to the platform with your own data. And the platform will use that data to make money without paying you anything back. Okay, so data becomes the raw material, and capitalism turns data as one way to maintain economic growth and vitality in the face of a sluggish production sector. I won't go to details of this kind of economy, platform economy, but I just remind you, when we look at the bottom-up initiatives, the good and bad mixed up together. The sharing in the first stage at the beginning, yes, it is a very good idea, romantic idea towards democracy, idea towards collective sharing. Everything seems to be equal, and you share your things and people share things with you. Everything sounds very romantic, right? But yes, it's still true right now. Everything can participate, contribute, and everything can get benefit from it. But at the same time, it is also exploitation. So it is very much mixed up, the good and bad, the individual and those giants. Okay, we take a break. Okay, sorry, more than 1 hour. We take a break. We come back at 7. Let's see, 8 o'clock. We come back. Oh, sorry, no, not 8 o'clock. It seems I won't even be able to finish the co-working space. We don't take break, okay? We don't take break. Let me see how much I can finish with the co-working space. So the things that, okay, yeah, I will carry on. I will try to talk more as much as possible, okay, about the co-working space. So the things that, the thing I try to call your attention is about the unit. Look at the unit. In the past, in city governance, in urban governance, in urban planning, we look at sectors, right? We look at zones, clusters. But right now, we have to handle individual, many apps. So this has completely changed the way of thinking. So the first case I want to share is as a co-working space, right? When this is very much about everyone, although many people of you may feel that it's not really so relevant to me, but perhaps also relevant to you. For example, during the pandemic, a lot of our master students actually get message from co-working space in Shenzhen to say that, oh, if you are suffering from pandemic, you can come to Shenzhen and we have co-working space for you. You can rent a desk for 1 day, 1 month, blah, blah, and you can work there. So this is not really something very, very new, but perhaps still the minority in terms of office stocks. But anyway, first of all, co-working space. It's a shared physical working space and international cooperation between independent workers. Co-working is a way of working with freelancers, small-scale entrepreneurs, organizations, members, blah, blah. They work together. So co-working space is a group of people who work alongside each other, but not necessarily with each other. You share the space, perhaps you share the coffee machine, but you share the emotion, the experience, ideas, but you don't necessarily working together, okay? So again, still sharing, it is the idea, becomes so dominating, it becomes so prevailing that work, perhaps we can think, is also a style of sharing. So first of all, again, we need to talk about the context. Why sharing becomes so important for work? So we have to talk about Industry 4.0 and the specialty of production, because the splintering of value chain and the distributed production. I think I probably will skip this part, but anyway, just to give you the information here. With the mushrooming of a lot of startups, basic thing is that in the past, traditional economy, especially Industry 3.0, we do have still have Industry 2.0. Sorry, Industry 2.0. We still have big companies, right? Look at BMW. Look at all these car industries. That's the typical food-based production. You have a big company, big factory. And in that factory of car production, you have an assembly line. Every workers work on their own stage, right? Under the same roof. This is metaphorical, not literally, but anyway, you do have, for example, even iPhone, mobile phone, you have workers on different stages of the assembly line under one roof, managed by the same managerial team. Okay, so that's the traditional way of working. Everything is organized by the same company, and for all the employees, you can master your own piece. But right now, for many startups, it's only 1 or 2%, and all the things right now, production, all the things can be outsourced. The first of all is the splintering of value chain. For example, making phone might not be so feasible right now to outsource. But anyway, let me give you an example. For example, WeChat. Weixin, okay, the app of Weixin. It sounds like, it's an app, but actually the app has a lot of different parts. All the different parts can be split, divided, and then outsourced to different coders, to different startups to work on that, okay? So WeChat, you think it's an integrated platform? No, all the platform can be divided to many different parts, and all the different parts can be outsourced to different companies to work on. So WeChat is not actually invented. It is invented by Tencent, but so far a lot of components have been outsourced to small teams so they can work on it. So this is what we call the splintering of value chain, outsourcing. Okay, outsourcing, one way to splinter the value chain is by outsourcing. So it is possible, because of this, it is possible for many individuals to work on individual parts. For example, video games, the mobile phone video games. I know I have a friend working in Tencent, work on the video games, and he told me that, for example, you can have one figure outsourced and operated by someone else. And perhaps a particular setting, the scenario, a mountain area, you can outsource this part to another company. Okay, so the video game can be divided to many different parts and outsourced. So this person perhaps only work on one figure, and this person working on the other figure. They can work on their own and in their own places. So it is possible for the small firms to work on their own. So that's why sharing as a style of work. So right now, that actually changed how we think about work. Imagine you're working on the outsourced part of WeChat or outsourced part of a video game. What's the important thing? In the past, a worker's value is purely measured by what he produced, right? But right now, no. If you look at so many coders, anyone can work on a figure, which is not the main character of that video game. Even you're working on some of the smaller figures appear maybe only once or twice in that video game. So it doesn't matter it is so good or so bad. Millions of coders can do that, but who get a job? It is very much dependent on how much you can get connected to Tencent, especially the team who are dividing the parts of that video game. So right now, substance of work is not just about what you produce, how good you produce that particular thing, but very much about how you are able to assemble to get the production going. And that rely on communication, network. This is another term, network capital, how you are able to build up networks. In Chinese, we call it 关系, right? You build up networks, you get to know this particular person, perhaps you eat together once or twice, you go, you have drinks, you have coffee, you enjoy the same particular game, and somehow you build up particular relationship, and so that that person is willing to outsource that particular figure to you. Okay, so no matter what types of network, anyway, you need to communicate, you need to build up the relationship with different persons so that you can get outsourced commissions. So what is crucial is what you can build up. Can you build up the network, the infrastructure, and can you get yourself into that network or infrastructure? So network building becomes one of the most important quality of a worker, aside from the things you produce. So in that way, actually, whether one is, so in that sense, actually, whether one is on or off the network determines one's value as a worker. Therefore, what is important for workplaces is that the workplace must be atomized, but also connected, just like a node on the web. So what does it mean? Let me give you this example. So first of all, the condition for co-working place is based on, is that first of all, you need to be able, you are working on particular things that you can work on yourself, atomized work. And then, even you are working on your own, it's not like writers, okay? You produce a book completely on your own. But even writers, if you want to publish the book, for example, traditional writers, they always have a connection with the editor in particular publisher firms, right? You need to build up the connection with that editor. And right now, if you use this app, right now we have all kinds of the apps working on literature, online literature. For example, there's Qidian, okay? The China literature in mainland China, there's a platform of Qidian, and you submit your writings to that platform. And if there are a lot of users like your writings and you get more popular, get to the top, and then you perhaps get a contract with that platform, with that app. So you still need to, get connected. You need to get connected to your readers, how you can attract them. And you need to get connected with particular, for example, platforms and perhaps somewhere else. So this is actually the person who actually invented the idea of co-working space. He said that he tend to feel loneliness. Why? So this is question when they work as a freelance engineer, okay? So nowadays, even engineer, you can work on yourself. It's a freelance. You don't have to be employed by any particular company, but you can work on your own. But the condition is that you must get connected to the others, right? So look at the two sides of working alone. First of all, the work, the particular job, the commission must be atomized. You can work on yourself, but at the same time, you must connect it to others so that you can get that piece of work to you and also sold to others. So when they asked why, you can just work, if if you can right now with a lot of these kind of softwares, you can even produce a song on your computer. You don't have to go to studios. You don't have to work with all the other musicians. Why don't you work at home? Why don't you work in a cafe? But why particularly a co-working space? So he said that because of the feel loneliness and struggle for ideas, so he opened a space called the Hat Factory in a building that was formerly a hat factory and started working there with some friends. Afterwards, similar examples gradually spread mainly in major American cities, eventually to Europe. So he said that it's actually a feeling of loneliness. Although you are working on yourself, you feel the loneliness and struggle for ideas. You need some inspirations. So the question is, if digital technology free people from the four walls of traditional office and factories, why co-working space? Still, you have to go to some places you don't work together, share the space with other people. So first of all, feel lonely and feel, but at the same time, you need to feel you can control your own time. You can go to work at what time you like to. Today, I'm not feeling well, so I don't go to work. Today, tomorrow, I feel very good. I feel very much inspired, so I go to work. Today, perhaps I need to rest because I need to pick up my children from school. And tomorrow, I will go to co-working space to work. So it is very much about one control, one organize, a chance to let one organize one's work in terms of space, where you organize your work, in terms of time, what time you're going to work. And of course, when it control means that you try to separate your home from your personal life, try to separate work from your personal life because you don't want to mix things up, right? So, and another important thing is the new norm, the new idea, the new thinking of the worker. You don't just become one of the employees, go to a particular place to work according to the company's rule at particular hours. You are trying to control it yourself. You are organizing. You are not just, freelancing is not just about work. It's very much about organizing the structure of your work, which requires awareness, willingness, and actual action. So this is very much complete the man side, complete different thinking mentality. You have thinking differently, and you have to believe that way differently, and you do things differently. Okay. So that's why if you look at the co-working space, this is the co-working space, and most important thing again, sharing space. If you go to all the co-working space, there always be a public space you can share. It doesn't belong to anyone. You can sit here for a long time. You have coffee machine here and blah, blah, you have books there. So it is very much an open space. You can share the space and see each other, feel you are living, you are working with same-minded people. So first of all, this kind of sharing is very much against loneliness. Although one is in charge of one's own work, you are organizing your own work, but you still want to stay with people like you. That's why you go to co-working space and feel you are surrounded by like-minded people and you are sharing a space. So it is very much about an atmospheric, an atmospheric setting that reminds one to keep networking so that one can share and get shared. You might get into the nodes. If co-working space is the nodes for you to meet each other, to feel you are connected. So you have to, you have to get into the network and you can share with others, but you also get shared from each other. So still, when it comes to co-working space, it's the feeling of you control yourself and you can control who you are going to network with, how you are going to build up the network, with whom, at what time, in what space. So again, we have a summary here. The co-working space, the shared form of the digital working space is given through participation in a network. Modes of connection that may or may not involve geographical proximity, blah, blah. I will let you read this by yourself. But when it comes to the planning issues, governing issues, how do we plan office right now? So for all the planners and also we have a lot of property management, property managers, and also future policy makers. So right now, in the digital space, yes, right now we have co-working space, and actually it is not just one or two. This is a Google map. When I type co-working space, you see how many places have coming up. All these places are co-working space in operation right now in Hong Kong. So you might be surprised that there are so many co-working space, and actually some of them are very busy, very, very popular, even during the pandemic. This is very surprising. You think during the pandemic, people will avoid going to this space you share with each other, but actually it's the contrary. So if this become a new norm, what's the challenge? What's the challenge for us when we need to plan, when we need to manage, when we need to make policy for this kind of a new working space? So in the past, for planners, we do master plan. We divide the city by function of that particular land. This is residential, that is working office area, and this is blah, blah. So it is very much big clusters, big zones. The city is divided to many different zones. But right now, perhaps it is very much about networks and nodes. Co-working space, you don't need actually one building, perhaps just one floor of one residential building. So co-working space can be very small or maybe big ones, but they are very much distributed, scattered in the city. And because they are distributed, they are scattered almost everywhere. And the most important thing is the network, how they can be connected each other physically and also digitally. So this is the new challenge, the new issue of planners, managers, and policymakers when it comes to new urban space. How do we plan the office? Okay, yeah, that's the first case, and we stop here. So next week, I will continue with the shared bike, which is even more scattered, even more distributed. What's the issue of planning and governing shared bike space? And later on, we will talk about Hema, the case of virtual retail, this kind of infrastructure based on retail. So in all these cases, you will see nodes and infrastructure network connected with each other. And for the case of Hema, if the co-working space and shared bike is still about the individual persons and very scattered at a very fine level, and Hema becomes, for example, if you look at Hong Kong TV Mall, you have a lot of outlet for Hong Kong TV malls, right? The small stores located almost at every street corners. So that changed our urban space completely, the configuration of urban space completely. But at the same time, it's very much mixed in terms of formal and informal. How many actors are there? And who is actually, how we look at this kind of participation and actually exploitation as well. So who eventually becomes this dictatorship and who actually becomes more individual, more participatory way of contribution to this overall reuse of space. When everything becomes distributed, everything becomes scattered, and how are networks are connected? How do we look at the partnership, the formal and informal partnership? How many actors are there? And how do we look at the partnership between different actors, people to people, NGO to NGO, and apps to apps, and how we look at a different nature of this kind of a partnership, and how we eventually look at the operation of this partnership. And so what's the challenge out of the sharing cities, sharing economy, and sharing society? Okay, so that's all of today. Any questions so far? If there's no questions, we will start actually the tutorial session in 20 minutes. You need to quit this Zoom meeting and get into the other Zoom meeting. Again, I posted the Google Drive, the link to the Google Drive in the chat box, and I will post it again on the Canvas. I just realized I perhaps posted the announcement to another course. So sorry for that. My apologies. I think I posted the announcement to another course. But anyway, I will repost this link and try to you try to download this PDF version of this PowerPoint. And I will further develop the following part on the top-down partnership, top-down initiatives here. But at the same time, let me remind you again that 3 key elements of sharing cities, sharing economy, and sharing society: ICT, IoT, and citizenship. So even when we talk about top-down, we talk about top-down, bottom-up, but still these 2 types of initiatives are always mixed up. You do see gradually, even for Facebook, even for Twitter, even for Uber, Airbnb, they start bottom-up. They start at very small scale and individually participate into this kind of partnership. But eventually, some becomes very gigantic monsters. Many others actually failed, okay? But anyway, so in the current cities, in the current smart cities initiatives, actually it is very mixed up, bottom up, many millions of bottom up initiatives and 1 or 2 top down initiatives. They are very much mixed together. So we do have very positive, very utopian style of sharing, but we also have those kind of capitalist style of exploitation based on sharing, how capitalists appropriate this kind of sharing. And we will come back actually to the appropriation, exploitation next week. Okay, thank you all, and see you next week.